What's up, everybody? I'm Matt.
And I'm Beth.
And today we're going to take you through the whole interior here on the brand new 2020 Volvo V60 Cross Country. So, had this vehicle for about a week now, and it's a really nice place to be. This one has a few little upgrades, like this linear lime deco open pore wood trim that feels really nice and looks really good. Yeah, it's a very nice interior. I really like the design. It's very modern, and you know, Volvo uses this in a lot of their vehicles, but I think it still just looks good in everything they use it in, so I don't have any complaints. Everything's nicely trimmed, even, you know, padding here on the top of the dash. And so it makes a very impressive first impression, I think. You know, this big screen in the middle also helps to kind of stand out, although these days it's not as big as some of the competitors. But anyway, first thing, sitting down in these seats. This one has heated seats. If you go for some other trims, you can get cooled seats. And the support in these seats is really good too. They have a pretty good amount of bolstering to them. It's, you know, appropriate for a family vehicle, not too sporty or anything, not as sporty as the R-Design seats. The V60 Cross Country here is a little unique, where there's only one trim, unlike other Volvos where there's Momentum, R-Design, and Inscription. There's just one trim, so right now we only have these seats and that's it. But they're great. They're very comfortable.
It is nice because you get the memory seats in the passenger side. There's also a thigh extender, which isn't very normal in passenger seats. So if you're on a long drive or whatever, it's really nice to use for sure.
Yeah, and that's a good point, because, I mean, passenger side memory is also pretty rare, and that is part of an option package, I believe, on this one. But yeah, and thigh extension on the passenger side is also something super rare. So yeah, I like that Volvo did think about the passenger here up front for this vehicle. It's a very nice touch.
And as an added bonus, I'm Swedish, and the passenger seat has a nice little Swedish flag here. So yeah, go Swedes.
Next is the steering wheel here and the Volvo. It's the same basic Volvo steering wheel you get in all the other stuff, but I really like the duotone leather here, you know, with cream on the inside and the black on the outside. It looks really good. Just a few buttons here on it. Volvo's a little odd with their setup. It definitely has more of a learning curve than the average car, where, you know, some of the buttons don't look as familiar as they do in other vehicles and things like that, but it's pretty easy to understand all the stuff here on the steering wheel. The gauges, though, are a little bit more interesting as well. So you see that it's a nice digital gauge cluster, and you have the maps there in the middle, and there's not a whole lot of customization. There's only a little trip computer thing in the bottom right there, and even I had to look up in the owner's manual what all those things meant as far as the actual manual trip, and then there's an automatic trip, and it's just a little odd and different than what you get in some other vehicles, but a very attractive set of gauges nonetheless. You also do have a heads-up display here in the V60, this one as it's equipped with this advanced package. Coming over to the center screen, though, it is a 9-inch vertical display, and it's very good. So they actually upgraded the processor last year in all the Volvos so that it's faster and snappier than it used to be, and I have no complaints with the speed. It does take maybe 5 to 10 seconds to boot up and have the navigation come on and all that kind of stuff. So that sometimes takes a little longer than maybe average, but really not too bad. And once it's warmed up, it's immediate, it's snappy, no complaints there. It also does have Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, and so good to have that integration.
It was also super easy for me to use while he was driving. It's definitely a learning curve, but I think once you got through everything, it was easy to use. Speaking of turning on your heated seats, definitely is way easier in this car than some other ones. With a touchscreen, it is on there. It's not just a plain button, but you can just touch it once and it goes straight on.
Yeah, and it's a much better setup. This is what we were complaining about if you watched our Subaru Outback interior review, where with that you have to go into multiple submenus in order to turn on your heated seats in that car. It's just this button right there. You hit it and immediately you have your heated seat control that you're controlling. So it's a few less button taps than it is in the Subaru, and so I think Volvo does this whole integration a little bit better.
This car is also optioned with the Bowers & Wilkins stereo system, which is really nice.
Yeah, it's 1100 watts and has, I think, 15 speakers here in this configuration. It's slightly different depending on the Volvo, but in this one, 15 speakers, and it sounds very, very good. I was very impressed. We were just cruising around and listening to Bluetooth audio primarily, and even just with that, it sounded very good. I even also did about an hour on the highway in this vehicle with jamming out to this stereo, and it sounds very, very good. And it's one of those systems that, yes, it's a $4,000 option in this car, but this is, if you really enjoy audio experiences, I think it's worth the $4,000. And actually, another channel that reviewed this vehicle, Mark at Savage Geese, they did all the instrumented testing on this stereo system, and in their opinion, it's one of the best performing systems under, you know, $70,000 or $80,000. So it's a very strong performing system, not just to the ears, but also objectively when you look at the numbers of it as well. It's very, very well designed. And so it's quite an enjoyable sound experience. I was pretty impressed listening to it. I love jamming out to stuff and having powerful stereos, and this one is one of the best ones out there, under 100 grand, I think, in my opinion. So very impressive there. But also, you know, coming down, other audio stuff, you have just this big pause and play button with a big volume knob, and feels pretty nice and satisfying to use. Just a few buttons. The whole thing with this interior is there's almost no buttons. It's kind of amazing how they've eliminated almost all of them and just have everything here on the screen. And even just like looking at the engine start stop knob, which is kind of unique, you twist it to turn it on, and that's just got this like knurled aluminum finish, this like diamond pattern to it. It's really beautiful. Also, the drive mode selector is the same thing with this scroll wheel. The shifter even has some metal and leather on it. I mean, everything is so high quality feeling in here. Another thing though, you have some pretty good amount of storage spaces here. You have a pretty large pocket in the door with a bottle holder. You have this little tray for your key up front here, and then you have a power outlet and another little tray, as well as 2 cup holders, and that's a good amount of storage there. There's also the center armrest, which is pretty nice and softly padded. You open that up and you'll see a decent sized cup. You can fit a, you know, pair of sunglasses, things like that in there very easily. Pretty good depth. And you'll find also 2 more USB jacks in there.
One thing I do have to say is that the center console here has this cream plastic, and I don't think if you're getting a Volvo, you should have this like plastic here. I think it should be at least like the matching leather or like a soft vinyl or something. I think it should at least be a little bit nicer than just a plastic.
Yeah, and not only just from an appearance sake, I mean, because that also just feels kind of cheap, but it's also not good to rest your knee on. It's actually hard, and, you know, you do have a little bit of this, like, padded vinyl up, you know, closer to the top of the dash here, but even that doesn't really have much give to it, but at least it's a little bit of a nicer texture. But like any other vehicle, I mean, even Mazda puts padding down here by the knee area, so that whenever you're resting on long highway trips and things like that, and you're using cruise control, resting your knee here, this would not be a good experience to have your knee sitting on hard plastic for hours on end. So that's an odd thing for a luxury vehicle to not have that padded, and that would be, I think, one of the first upgrades I would do if I were, you know, refreshing this interior, is to, yeah, put at least some soft touch vinyl. It doesn't have to be as nice as the leather here, but, you know, that would be also even nicer if they wanted to go one step further. But yeah, not super luxurious feeling there to have this very hollow feeling plastic here. Backseat space in the Volvo V60 is actually roomier than you would think. So I'm 5'9", me sitting behind myself. I easily have about 3 to 4 inches of legroom to spare. Plenty of headroom as well, especially with that panoramic moonroof there. So it's a very spacious back seat.
It does come with heated seats, which is nice.
Yeah, so that's an optional package you get for $750. Heated steering wheel and heated rear seats. And for only $750, that's, I think, well worth it. You also do have their own climate control back there as well, so they can adjust their own fan speed and temperature, and you also have some vents there. There's also a power outlet underneath that as well, and there's also a fold down center armrest with a nice little cubby area there, and then 2 cup holders that pop out of the front. There's also bottle holders in the doors too. So all things considered, it's a very nice and comfy back seat, and has lots of amenities there for those sitting back there too. Trunk space in the V60 is also really good, and here in the cross-country version, you have a little bit of a higher load floor since you got about 2.4 inches of extra ground clearance, so you know, it makes it a little easier to put things in and out of there. And so it's a pretty long, wide space. I'd say it's about as much space as you get in your average compact SUV, you know, something like that. Not huge, but you know, there's not really anything underneath the floor either. But you know, as far as wagons go, it's pretty average, and about what you would get in something like a Subaru Subaru Outback, I think, just by eyeballing it. And so there's also a little power outlet there on the right-hand side, a little net on the left-hand side there. And it's also a power hatch, which is a nice feature. It does also have the kick feature where you can, you know, swing your leg underneath the bumper and have it open it up. And it works sometimes, but like most of these systems, they don't always work all the time. So it's kind of a hit or miss thing. So personally, I just hit the buttons still. It's not worth sitting there and kicking the back end until it finally opens up. So, but yeah, it's overall a good amount of space back there too. So yeah, that's all of our thoughts here on the interior of the Volvo V60 Cross Country. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them. Otherwise, thank you guys very much for watching. We'll see you on the next one.
Take care.